All right. So, welcome back to PolitiTalks. We've got Neil, Turbo, and myself. Today's topic is going to be social media and political advertising, anything political. So, we've got a lot of stuff that's happened this week that was exciting with Elon Musk. And some new news came out today, or I think it was Friday actually, but I read about it today. So, might be something we can move into after we talk about different views on it. So
I do think it will cross, most certainly.
Oh yeah.
But I am interested mainly because looking at the responses, I'm not sure about Turbo's, but Frio's, mine, and Zach, who's not here, so he's wrong automatically.
Yep. That's his rule.
That's his rule.
That's his rule. Yep.
We all three had differing opinions, so I'm curious to see what Turbo's is.
So Turbo, we'll let you open up since you're the new one on today.
Sure.
So and again, to reiterate, the question is, should social media companies ban political advertising?
So, guys, thanks for having me back on.
Yeah.
Should they ban political advertising? That's actually something I don't know that I've actually put a whole lot of thought into, mainly because I don't use social media quite a bit. I'm one of those old white-haired grumpy old men that says bot technology as I work for. Yeah, and here I am on a podcast, and I am a pre-sales technical engineer for a software company. So yes, let your heads parse that one. I think a lot of it is and Neil's led to this a couple of times because I've asked him, a couple of other questions regarding social media and whatnot. Is they're a private entity. So if that political advertisement does not violate their terms of service, then I see no reason why it cannot be put on their platform.
I think we're all in agreement on that specific.
So now the issue is, because social media companies have made their terms of, what is their community guidelines and standard, and I think we can all agree that it is not applied evenly across the board, because every single person, and whether you're on the left or the right, and I really am getting to the point where I hate using that term, because there's a lot of times that Neil and I have had conversations outside of these podcasts that I like Neil. I consider Neil to be someone that, if I was going out to California, I would call up Neil and say, "Hey buddy, I'm going to be in your area. Let's get together and hang out for a bit."
Yeah,
for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And Neil, I would hope to think, would say, "That's awesome that you're coming out here. I'd love to do that." And so at the end of the day, while we may have differing opinions, I think that my relationship with Neil is way more important than any difference we could ever have. Yeah. And so I think the biggest issue to get back to, should they allow it to do it? Yes, but they need to apply it fairly. And I think that has become, unfortunately, extremely subjective in a lot of different social media companies. Now, and I am not singling any one of them out, because if you start, me being a conservative person, the immediate thing is, oh, well, you just hate Twitter and you don't want, you just want them to not do, whatever. And I'm like, I don't want Parler, Getter, or any of those other ones doing it either. And I think that gets lost in the translation is, Twitter's the big 900-pound gorilla, right? They are the largest in that space for that type of communication, right? And so I don't agree with any censorship across the board. I think everyone should have the ability to voice their opinion on it without retribution. So,
Couple things.
yep,
First, we're not talking about censorship. We can, but
sure.
that's not what we're talking
No,
about.
you're right. And
Second, surprisingly, Twitter, not the big one for
That's correct.
political advertising. It was Google platforms, i.e., YouTube, and Facebook primarily. And to give some
okay.
context, at the 2020 elections, because that was the last large elections, Biden spent $145.6 million on social media. The two that we were looking at again are Facebook and Alphabet Google. And Trump spent $145.1 million. They spent collectively over $290 million, fairly equally. There's a $500,000 difference. I would argue $500,000 when you're over 140 million
Doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fairly close. So the spending is the same.
I think what he
Fairly
means
close.
with Twitter being the biggest one is that's where a majority of the reporters are, a majority of the politicians are sending out their message, whereas Facebook.
That's not paid.
Yeah.
We're talking specifically about paid advertising, right? And so again, if
No,
you're
just
just putting
advertising,
yourself
yeah.
out there, that's not really paid advertising.
Sure. No. And of course, and again, should they be allowed to do that? Because a lot of people, myself included, I don't watch TV anymore. Okay. I don't watch OTA TV. I'm not going to see political advertisements 90% of my time. Right. So, from a standpoint of am I a unicorn in that? I don't really think I am. I don't know how many people are doing OTA TV anymore. So at a certain point, how does any entity reach a user base for marketing?
Was that a question for us, or was that just rhetorical?
I think it was just a rhetorical. I think it was more rhetorical. Sorry. It's one of those things. Well, I guess, Cryo, what do you think? How else is if a lot of the places where normal political advertising sat was over the air? Of course, as everyone could see, I'm old. I have a gray beard. I don't dye it this color, right? I grew up on TV. So we used to see that all the time, but that's not how I watch or consume media anymore. So for me, I understand why it would need to be in a YouTube format.
Right. I think you and I are mostly in agreement, Turbo. When it comes to political advertising, I believe that they should be allowed to, but it should be equal distribution across the board between the two sides. If a business wants to support a specific candidate or a specific side, they shouldn't be allowed to. They should be able to support them, when they talk about them, but they can't stop or pay one side more than the other. If they're going to support politics, they should pay both sides their donations equally, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Neil, maybe you can help me understand, but the last time I checked on the way that most of these advertisements is, it's coming from the company that's distributing the media to begin with. So if I'm looking, and I take YouTube for example, right? YouTube is going to amplify that ad to a user, to the user base, right? I'm not going to go one way or the other right now. I'm just going to say how I see it working and how I would think logically that it would is that, okay, YouTube, here's an ad I want you to promote to your user base, and you pay for that, and it gets amplified. So it gets put into a rotation. Maybe it is a political advert. So people watching political based videos are going to be more likely to receive that advertisement than otherwise, right?
Yeah.
The problem, and the thing that I wonder is if what ends up happening is if I'm a user and I'm looking at YouTube and I say, okay, well, I'm watching mostly conservative videos, Am I going to get more conservative? Are the advertisements that I'm going to get for candidates going to be more conservative, or am I going to get a equal distribution?
You're not going to get an equal distribution. That's
and so that is my problem. I mean, even for me, I want to hear, well, let's just say Texas governor, right? And right now it's looking like it's going to be Beto and Abbott. If I'm looking at YouTube and there is a ad for Texas governor, I want to see both.
So, okay. Got a couple of things here, so you have to follow me on this.
Please now tell me to shut up.
Surprisingly
No. I'm just going to go down some notes here.
Sure.
First, you mentioned terms of service or terms of agreement and making sure that they fall within those guidelines, and that you said that they're not equally distributed. You said that we can all agree that they're not equally distributed, and I wholeheartedly disagree with you on that. And the reason I disagree with you on that is because the terms of services and the terms of agreements by every social media platform are completely ubiquitous. They are shady for a reason. They say everything and nothing all at once, so they can be applied how they want to apply it, which means they are being applied fairly because they're applying it to whoever they want. And as a company, that is their right, because again, when it boils down to, you have the right to refuse service to who you want as a company. We've talked about in the past. So I would argue that they're intentionally clouding their service terms of a service, which they will freely admit to. It's a lot of fluffy, flowery language, so they can apply it to who they want and where they want. Now, when it comes to the political advertisements being dispersed, you're kind of right, but not really. So most political advertisements are funded through PACs or super PACs, right?
Yep.
Super PACs and PACs are designed so we don't know who's actually donating to them. Okay, so a shit ton of money is coming from somewhere. We don't know who, but these PACs are then distributing it. But when it comes to, it's up to Facebook or Google or whoever to disseminate it equally and equitably, it's not really true. Think about it this way. If and I'm going to use Fox News, and I'm not trying to bash Fox News in any way, shape, or form for this, right?
That's fine.
But
I don't have a look. I'm not a fan of Fox News, so let's just get that out of the way right now.
the reason I'm doing it is because Fox News, their primary viewers are men who are elderly, right? 45 and above, especially during certain times, is 60 and above. So a lot of their ads are designed for that focus group. Medicare ads,
sure.
colostomy bag ads, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. Advertisers pay for those time slots and they're paying for that channel because that's who they want to target, right?
Yes.
So when a PAC has a Democratic political ad they want put on Facebook, they're not going to push it to go on the algorithm that brings up Republican searches. Why? Because it's not going to land anywhere. No one's going to like it. Everyone's going to bash it and trash it. And so they're going to push for it to go on the people that look up Democrat or liberal leanings, right? The only way to really subvert this is for you as the user to look up both equally all the time, but we don't. But that's really the only way to get around it. It's not YouTube's job to tell you what to look for and to feed you what you look for. It's a political actions committee's job to make an advertisement for their person and then get it to the people who are going to view it and respond to it, not get it out to everybody. So I think it's not incumbent upon Google or Facebook to determine where it goes. They're doing what they are told to do because, again, they're getting paid to do it, right? Sure. You have an ad, you want me to disperse it to everybody, great. I'm going to get paid to do it, and then I'm going to put it where you want me to put it. You're paying me to do that, so I'm fine with that.
So I think probably then one of the biggest issues is the way that the ads are, how companies and super PACs and whatnot think about how they're advertising, and they've got to have to change to update that. Because like you said, if I'm looking to target a specific demographic or just a specific mindset, it's a whole lot easier to say, oh, well, I want to, in your example, I want to target, elderly men 45 and above for my product because that's what it's aimed for. I know where I'm going to put it. It's just boom. And I think a lot of it is going to be there has to be a change in the advertising mindset of the people that do the advertising to determine, okay, well, how am I now going to target that? And unfortunately, people that are that old, they're going to continue to watch TV. That's actually not those aren't the ones that you've got to wonder, how am I going to reach? Right? It's more of your 20 to 30s. It's more like Cryo's, age group. How do I get to them when they're not the ones watching Fox News or CNN or whatever the big media conglomerate is at the time.
Right, and it's social media, and that's why I was using Fox News as an example because I knew their demographic, but I was using it as an example of advertisers paying to have their ads targeted to a specific clientele. And the same thing's happening in social media. The ads are targeted to their group. We live in bubbles on social media. It's one of the reasons why I liked our Discord chat, and one of the reasons I really like this podcast is we're outside the bubble. We are all from very different political leanings. We're all having civil discussions, and we're all within each other's bubble now. But if you were on my social media, you were the only time you're going to see, as an example, the only time I would see a Trump ad on Twitter, and I have to use Twitter because I don't have Facebook, but the only time I would see a Trump ad, was that?
I canceled mine a year or so ago. Facebook.
I've never got Facebook. I don't see the fascination with it. And I think the reason why is when it first started coming up, there was a game called Farmville. I'm sure you guys remember Farmville on Facebook, right?
Yep.
My wife had it, and I was like, "What are you doing? It's this isn't even farming. Like, it drove me up the wall." So
game.
I was like, I refused to get it. So I haven't gotten it, and I just never did. And now at this point, it's like I've been 10 years without it. I can't now. You know what I mean? So anyway,
is that a point of pride? Is like, my
yeah.
God, I'm not doing it. I haven't done it now. I haven't done it in the past. And I'm sure not going to do it now.
I have a hoodie that says Facebook is the devil. I should have worn that for this.
And I would, and I don't think anyone here would argue that point.
Right. But so like for Twitter, right? When I was going through, the only political ads I saw for Trump in the 2020 election were the political ads that were Republican in nature, but they were the George Conway, his group.
Oh,
you know who George Conway is, right?
I do, as a matter of fact. Yes.
You know Kellyanne Conway, right?
Yes, I do.
She worked for Trump was.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's her husband. Yeah.
Her husband's a lawyer and a Republican and very not a Trump fan. And so he started his own political group for Republicans, and all their ads were showing how bad Trump was. Because, again, a lot of the things we look up are either video games or Democrat. Those were the type of Trump ads I would see. I'm willing to bet that if I went on either of your social medias during 2020, I would see vastly different Trump ads reporting what he was doing correct. Am I safe to say that?
Yeah.
With how Turbo was saying, distribute them equally. That's what I was getting. I was getting both sides.
Well, that's good.
And I wasn't even looking up Democrat stuff back then. At least not where my Facebook could track me.
Well, that's good. Again, I never had Facebook. Mine was solely Twitter. And those were the kind of ads I was getting.
I have kept Twitter separate from my personal stuff because that's what I did. I used Twitter strictly when I was doing the prop making stuff. I don't do it so much anymore. So my Twitter's been basically dead. So I kept my Twitter as my prop stuff and not my personal stuff.
Right. Yeah, I honestly don't see an issue with the distribution. And the reason why I don't see an issue with the distribution is because the people that are putting those ads out are paying it for it to go to who they want it to go to, not for it to go to everybody.
Yeah. No, fair enough. So. And it makes sense. And you're right. It is incumbent upon the individual citizen, and I'm going to use that term very specifically, to go out there and to do their own research.
They don't.
I'm like, yeah, well, and this becomes the obvious issue, right? Is there's so many other things. I mean, our lives are busy. Let's be honest, right? And they're not slowing down. We've got too many distractions in our life, and our kids are the biggest one. I wouldn't have it any other way, but it does get to a point where you're so worn down that you don't have the time or the energy to go through and to look at other things, and so you naturally just default back to what you've always done because it's easier.
Yeah,
It's not necessarily easier. I mean, I understand.
It takes less effort.
I understand where you're getting from when you use the term "do your own research." The reason I get frustrated with that terminology is because it's been so misused. Because when you say "do your own research" and you apply it to everything, that's political, and unfortunately, that is now everything because everything is politicized.
Everything.
Yeah.
People will say, "Well, climate change isn't real because I did my own research." I'm sorry, you're a climatologist now. You're a fucking expert who's gone to college and has degrees and understands what a scientific peer-reviewed article is. You've read those articles, you've reviewed those articles, and you disagree with them and have a dissenting point of view that's been published as well. No, the fuck you don't, so shut the fuck up. That's my issue with people that say, do your own research. I understand politically when you're talking solely politics, yes, research the politicians and find out what their true point of view is on things and see if they align. But because, and when we're speaking specifically on politicians, 100% agree. I just don't like the term do your own research, only because, and it has to do with my family as well, being so overblown and people using it for everything now. I didn't realize everyone was an expert on, everything.
I think they specifically refer to doing it yourself. So research yourself, looking up the answers and finding the info from other experts, because it doesn't matter what subject you find, you're going to find experts on both sides of that specific subject.
Correct. But when it's a scientific
find experts
issue,
on both sides,
there's going to be experts on both sides. However, the reason the scientific community comes together is because there's always dissenting views. That's why they take the majority vote. And that is the popular vote, and that's the vote that we go with, right? So climate change, for a reason, 99% of climatologists say it is real and is an actual thing. You have 7 or 8 scientists out of 300 that say it's not. If you're only looking at those 7 or 8 people and not the 300 others, and to my point, you can't even look at those 7 or 8 people. You have to go with the majority in that. It's one of the things that frustrates me. If you're going to take the stance that we need to trust science and trust scientists because the scientific method works, great. We need to do that and trust in it. I understand the scientific method is flawed, but that's why it's peer reviewed, and that's why it's continuously changed to change as our technology and our understanding of things change.
Yeah. So the only thing that I have to, and this is I'm going to say this one thing and then I'm going to shut up because this is a whole nother topic for another video. I do not disagree with anything that you've said in that aspect. My one concern is when the follow the money.
Well, yeah.
Where are they getting their funding from? And again, like I said, that's the only thing, because we can spiral down that rat hole really quick, and I don't want to take away from where we're going from the political advertising and social media. But it's not to stifle you or anything, Neil. It's just I know where we can take that to, and that takes us down a rat hole way deeper.
Yeah.
Okay. But typically, typically the people that are dissenting are the ones you should follow the money on. It's kind of interesting. The ones that are dissenting voices tend to be the ones that are like the people that advocated okay. So back in the 40s and 50s, smoking was good for you. Do you remember seeing the ads where smoking was actually good for you? And they had science to back it up. They were all paid for by tobacco industry.
By the tobacco industry, yeah.
They still exist. There's still scientists out there that say smoking isn't that bad for you. It's okay. They're paid for by tobacco industry, right?
Yeah.
So to an extent, yes, I would agree. The majority of studies, though, are done, again, peer-reviewed throughout the world. They're scientists from the same profession in different countries that are all typically work at universities and are funded through universities. Universities are usually privately funded, so they're not really looking for a specific ideology. When they are looking for a specific ideology, they're not usually done through a university. They're privately funded by a specific source, and they want a specific outcome. So that's why, again, the scientific method I'm okay with trusting. And I hate to bring that up, and I know the reason I'm so fired up about this is because I love watching Bill Maher, and this is no shot at Bill Maher, but it kind of is. I love watching Bill Maher. I think he's hilarious. I think he's extremely smart, but it frustrates me when he wants to put science first, and he really believes this in following the scientific method, but he does it only when it fits him, when it suits him, and it drives me up a fucking wall. Like there was a bit he did with GMOs, and he doesn't understand why GMOs are a thing, and he wants people to be able to choose the difference between them, and he doesn't want them being around. And I'm like, okay, but again, if you want to back the scientific community and the scientific method, scientists there say it's fucking fine. So why is this science not one you like, and this science is one you do like? And so that drives me up a fucking wall. And if he's going to do it, I know everyone's going to do it, and it drives it just really, really infuriates me. Anyway,
so the thing I have to say, and the one thing that just to your point, Neil, the other thing that I hear that just drives me absolute, the science is settled.
Yeah.
Science is never settled. And
science
again,
is never settled, and I hope we can all agree with that. I hope we can all agree.
What side was pushing that for the past 2 years? That specific quote.
Again, scientists don't say that. Politicians and bureaucrats will say that. Most people say the science is settled when it comes to climate change. And what they mean by that is that it exists. They continuously every year try to defund it, or not defund it, disprove it, and they can't. After a certain amount of time, they'll say that it's settled to the extent in that unless something miraculously happens, you are not going to disprove it. Like gravity. Gravity is a settled science because you cannot disprove gravity, right? We can do something to do away with gravity, but you can't disprove gravity. The fact that the Earth rotates around the sun and not vice versa is settled science because, again, there's nothing to disprove it. It doesn't mean people aren't trying, right? They're still actively trying on it, but it's not something that when they say settled science, it's something that we can all agree on. It's common ground that we can all agree on. We agree that if you drop an apple, it's going to fall because of gravity, right? We agree the sun rises and sets because we rotate around the sun and the Earth spins. We can all agree on that. So that is settled science. Settled science doesn't mean that you can never question it again, that it's not currently being questioned, and that it is a fact. That is not what settled science means. Settled science means that it is the most common knowledge we have, and that we agree upon it, and we are moving forward. Again, it doesn't mean it's not questioned. Settled science was that the Earth was flat for a very long time until it was proven that it wasn't, right? It was settled science, but there were still people that were questioning it. That is fine. And now the settled science is that Earth is not flat. If you're a flat earther, you're fucking stupid. So,
anyway, and like I said, we could and again, we could take this rat hole down all the way to the end.
We are not even on social media anymore, which is hilarious.
No, I know. That's why I want to try to get back on it. I really wanted to get us back on that. So that's why I was like, great, I'm going to say this one thing. And it's, anyway, I digress. So sorry.
No problem. How it is every episode.
Yeah. No, but, like I said, from a social media, even to the point of YouTube, I don't get ads. Yes, I pay I did Google Music back when they first launched it in that. And so now for me, for YouTube, I don't even see the ads.
Are you telling me you've never heard about Raid Shadow Legends? Let me tell you about Raid Shadow Legends.
Okay. Now,
oh my God.
Now my YouTubers are telling me about that, but YouTube is not. There's a difference. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Well,
and I think that's what I'm talking about.
But that's a very good point, though, because is it not? I mean, that technically is a paid advertisement, right?
Yeah.
And it's a paid advertisement by a company, and it's targeted at a specific group, and is done specifically through YouTube.
Mhm.
right? Now, granted, the streamer or YouTuber, whatever the fuck they're called,
Yeah.
right? They're the ones getting the majority of the money, but YouTube's getting
Yeah.
some of it because YouTube's
Yeah.
generating the ads for them, right?
Yep.
So that I think it's a good
Well,
distinction, though, but it's not necessarily all going
there's
to Google.
yeah, so there's different, obviously there's different ways that you can do ads on YouTube, right? So YouTube can do their ads. The YouTuber or streamer, again, whoever the content creator is on that platform, and it doesn't matter if it's YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, take your pick, right?
I haven't heard of most of those.
Okay. I'm a fan of Odyssey. I just am. I know people look at Rumble, and Rumble's kind of like the alt tech version of YouTube. The interface looks like ass. Okay.
I've not
I'm just
used
going to
it
call it, it's crap. Same with BitChute. I don't like either one of them because the interface sucks.
Well, they're still
But
they're fairly new though, right?
a couple, about 2-3 years. So they're way behind YouTube when it comes to, uh, bandwidth and whatnot, but I digress. But there is a certain point, Neil, where you are correct. There is the ad. And I think what you were talking about in this is it okay for a social media company to display political advertisements?
Mhm.
And I think now we're getting into the differentiation we were talking about, I think, before we started the recording of is, if I say, hey, I'm doing this as a content creator and I'm endorsing this, this isn't really the social media company itself. This isn't YouTube getting that ad. Now they're getting ad revenue because the ads that they put in their videos, when you're watching a video and it stops and it plays the ad and it goes back to the content that creator created. I think that's different. And I think that there is some different pieces in that. And of course, the great thing about YouTube Premium, the right arrow button skips ahead 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I
So
Checked out
I
on
would
our
agree.
Twitch stream here, and we had a viewer, Hojo Potatoes.
Okay.
He
all right.
commented a few times here on the chat. He said, "Most
Okay.
science is driven by the genius of a few."
What
Say
is
that again now.
driven?
Most science is driven by the genius of a few.
Okay.
Okay.
Einstein was unimportant to the big science picture.
Okay.
I don't remember who it was that was talking about the tobacco companies.
That was me.
That was Neil.
He said that was a lie by the tobacco companies. It never was science.
Okay.
Sure.
And I 100% agree with that.
Yep.
I don't
But
think
the
anyone
point
here
I was
disagrees with
trying
that.
to make with that actually. So yeah, and with the science is driven by the genius of the few is technically correct. When you look at the population of the planet, we're nearing 8 billion. How many scientists do we have? Right, a few 100,000. Obviously, you're looking at of less than 1% are the ones driving the science. But again, they're the ones that decided to dedicate their life to a specific topic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The vast majority of people dedicate themselves to, apparently in America, the service industry, because that's our biggest export, and what we largely do is service. It doesn't mean they're less important. You could argue that they're more intelligent. That's subjective, but yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. And Einstein in the big picture, I don't know. There's so many scientists have been influenced by Einstein and how he approached science and his theory of relativity and his theory involving black holes. I like Stephen Hawking's and how he was influenced by Einstein. I don't know if he's necessarily unimportant, but he has definitely been surpassed for sure.
Sure, because the knowledge that we've built on the knowledge that he and others that have come before him, because even he, to his day, had to go on, a lot of the studies and the things that we had determined and figured out prior to him being on the scene. So it's cumulative knowledge. In my opinion, most of the science ends up being extremely cumulative, right?
Yeah,
and to your point about the tobacco companies, and the tobacco companies lied. They even got doctors that they paid to lie for them.
It was great.
Okay, so yeah, and anyway, so yes. So, when you start talking and obviously when it comes to advertisers and everything, and I think the biggest issue is why would someone, except that, you know, advertising. So for like Raid Shadow Legends, right? And you're right. I've never heard of Raid Shadow Legends. Neil, tell me, what is that?
So sorry. If I was getting sponsored,
No,
I
we're
certainly
done.
would.
We're done with that.
But
So anyway, you know, the big thing becomes is it's all about money.
and we live in a capitalistic society, so that's why my point is, I think it's
Mhm.
okay for social
Yeah.
media companies to advertise political have political advertisements, I guess is the best way of putting it. I
Mhm.
think it's okay for social media companies to have political advertisements. And since again we are a capitalistic society and they are the ones getting paid to distribute how their customers, again, or how their clients, right?
Mhm.
Their clients are the ones giving the money, how they want it distributed, and that's part of capitalism. I see nothing wrong with them distributing it how they have been distributing it.
Yeah.
Because again, that's how they make money.
Mhm.
And as a business, it is ultimately what their job is, to make money.
Yeah. No, 100%. You know, I work for a company, and in the words of one of my favorite movies, I like money.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and a lot of people will say, well, you know, money's not that important. You're right. It's just right up there with air. It only
No.
matters when you don't have it.
No, the people that say money isn't important are rich. I have yet to meet someone who's struggling to say money isn't important.
Yeah.
Because money is important to people that don't have money. People that
Yeah.
have a fuck ton of money, money ain't a thing. And that irritates me. Although that is why I wanted to propose a scientific study, right? Because they say money can't buy happiness, and I disagree with that wholeheartedly, but I wanted to prove it scientifically. Here's how I was going to do it, but I haven't had anyone take me up on it yet. Give me $20 million.
Watch Neil be happy for the rest of
10
his
years
life.
consecutively. I have a list of what equates happiness, right? And I will give you a scale every year, letting you know where my happiness ranks right now before I have the $20 million a year. And then a decade later, after getting $20 million a year for a decade. My theory, scientific theory, is that I will be significantly happier getting $20 million a year than I am now, making what I am. It's my scientific theory. I would love for someone to back me up on it,
to back you up, to fund you on that.
Especially the billionaires that say money doesn't buy happiness. Prove me wrong then.
Why don't you have to tweet out to Elon?
I should.
Yeah,
I
you
should
should
tweet
totally
to him.
do that.
Elon
So
Musk,
He's enough
take
of
me
a
up on
troll
it.
that he may even do it.
he may do it just for
Right.
just because that. You know, I see where you're coming from, you know, Neil, and there's definitely, you know, I have been very blessed in my life. Okay. I money is not money's not important right now because, as you said, I have enough to come in to meet all of my needs and pretty much the vast majority of my wants. Can I go and write a check for a Lamborghini tomorrow? No.
It'd be
Would I
nice.
want to? No. But that's a
Can't fit in
personal.
one, so
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, fair enough. You know, but my point is that at a certain point, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that the reason why, you know, people that are struggling, money is important because they're trying to get their needs met. Once they have enough that their needs are met and they can get their wants met, money becomes less of an importance because it's now my needs are not the focus. And because money, it's not the actual money that they want, it's the things that money affords them. It affords them the ability to drive a car that doesn't break down every 2 weeks and leaves them stranded on the side of the road, or money that affords them tires that they can put on their car so when it rains they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to hydroplane into a pole and hurt themselves or a family member that's riding with them, right? So those are the things. And I think what it comes down to is does money buy happiness? I don't believe that it's the physical, tangible thing of money, but the things that we can now do with it. If I do have the money to not have to worry about my needs being met, and I can go and do things that are important to me, right? So I got 100 million in the bank. I don't have to work a day for the rest of my life. My son probably won't have to, right? Because I'll put it in a trust where he can't do it all at once in one shot, right? But my point is that when it comes down to that, what defines happiness, right? And I don't think that necessarily, like, I'm not Scrooge McDuck. I'm not back there and, you know, I don't think rich people are saying money's not important, because that's not where they're deriving their happiness from. They're not swimming in their, you know, their pool of gold coins and money bills, right? I think a lot of it is it affords them to be able to do the things that they truly feel they want to do or are called to do. Everyone is called to do something. Now, what that is, every single person can figure that out on their own. But my thing is that while money doesn't buy happiness, it does get me and afford me the things to do that will make me happy. So yes, it's a
And
semantic,
it does buy happiness.
it is a semantics argument, because it affords me to do things that I would enjoy doing. If by happiness you mean that it affords that I can stay at home and play video games all day long, and then, you know, if I get bored with that, I can go somewhere else and go travel somewhere else, then yes, it affords me that happiness, right?
Great.
So
then we agree that
yeah.
money equals happiness.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm glad we can agree
I
on
think we all
that.
three agree on that.
Yeah. So
It's
I
in the
just don't want
equation.
people. I just don't want people thinking, oh, well, I've got, you know, these stacks of, you know, $100 bills laying around, and now I'm happy.
Well, that would make me happy too. I ain't gonna lie.
Briefly,
me.
it would be brief. I will tell you, you'll be happy, but it won't last.
Well, it will eventually be spent. So yeah, once it's all spent, it would.
And then once it's all spent, we're no longer happy, right?
Well, if I did it right, I'll be dead, so it'll be fine. It'll be a moot point.
The show is now approaching just past 52 minutes. So you guys want to close out your arguments? I think we were all kind of in agreement.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. So
on the social media thing, even though that was the first 10 minutes and we've been talking about other stuff since then.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think we all are fairly in agreement that Zach was the center saying that social media should not be able to do this. And obviously he's wrong because he's not here using his own rule.
And I think our only difference is how it should be. Like basically everything. We mostly all agree on the subject with slight differences and how the thing specifically is being implemented.
Yeah, but, the devil's always in the details.
Yeah, but again, my argument is that that's okay because it's designed on a capitalistic capitalistic system, and it's driven to make money, and that's exactly what it's designed to do. Because at the end of the day, they are a business.
Well, we never did talk about Elon and his trying to acquire Twitter.
No, we didn't.
Yes,
real quick.
Yes,
and
we successfully vaulted that.
I do want to get to that, but I have to. I wanted to do this because we were talking, and I've been thinking about this, and I just wanted to put this out here. And I have a conspiracy theory.
Okay,
all right.
I am all for those. Let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
It's a conspiracy theory because there's nothing to back it up. I know this is probably 100% bullshit, but here's my conspiracy theory.
Usually what comes out of your mouth is.
Right. So we're currently having record inflation. We can all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We disagree on whose fault it is, but yes.
Right. Ultimately, in my opinion, it's a business's fault because they're the ones that determine the price of things. The government can't say you cannot charge more than $5 for gas, right? The gas companies are the ones that dictate that, and this is based off of.
Well, let's not get sidetracked here. Let's not get sidetracked.
This is part of my conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Because again, I believe that it's the businesses that are doing this, but they're doing it for a reason. What is the reason they're driving up inflation to record heights? The reason they're doing it is because we are currently in a midterm election cycle. The Democrats are pushing for higher taxes on the wealthy, but they're also pushing for much more taxes on businesses, in my opinion, so they'd actually pay fucking anything, because right now a lot of businesses pay subjectively zero in taxes, right? So businesses are upset at Democrats because they're pushing to increase taxes on them. How do you get people to not like who is in power? You fuck up the economy. So the businesses are intentionally jacking up the prices because the midterm elections are going to come around, and we're going to see a lot of Democrats get pushed out because people are upset at the Democrats for the way the economy is currently going. Fast forward to next year, February, March, things are going to start dying down, getting normal. We're going to see a stagnant time where everything's going to be fairly okay. People are going to be kind of happy until we get to the beginning of 2024, because that's the presidential election year. And again, Democrats are still pushing for higher taxes on the wealthy, higher taxes on businesses. So what I think is going to happen, the housing market is going to crash. That's the year I'm predicting the housing market is going to crash, because they've already done the inflation game, fucked up the economy with the inflation in 2022. So now they're going to fuck up the economy with the housing crash. We're going to see a ton of people becoming homeless. We're going to see housing prices plummet, and people are being kicked out. We're then going to see a regime change. I don't know who the Republican frontrunner is right now. It was high. Last time I looked, it was a three-way tie.
Hey, Nasty Natty. I got a new viewer.
Nice. It was like a three-way tie between three different people. Whoever wins that, I believe, will be the next president. I don't think it's going to be Biden. It's going to be the Republican runner, whoever that is, in 2024. And I think that's going to be a great time for everyone to buy a house in 2025. That is my conspiracy theory that is based in nothing, just my opinion. So,
I mean, it makes sense.
Well, it's definitely plausible.
It, but
it's definitely plausible, and you know, this is the thing, and you know, I just think Democrats and Republicans are this different sides of the same coin. I think they all want big government. It's just how they're going about getting it.
Okay, that is a totally different podcast.
Yep.
Because we got to move on to Elon Musk and Twitter.
We
need to talk
Oh.
about that too.
So last week, Elon bought up 9% of Twitter. There was a couple days of no news, people speculating on it, and then just the other day
Thursday.
What's it? Thursday? Was it Thursday?
Thursday. It was Thursday.
Okay. So Thursday, he sent the letter over to the board and said, "Hey, I want to buy all of Twitter for his $54.20 per share." He always has to have 420 in his stuff. It's a huge troll. And they didn't get back to him until yesterday. They basically told him no. And I think it was, what did they call it? The
poison pill.
The poison pill. Yep.
They didn't tell him no. They told
What's
him
that?
He could. They didn't tell him no. They told him he could.
Yeah, Nasty. He wants to buy Twitter. He's
Yeah.
I think he's doing it because he really liked Babylon Bee, and they recently got banned. So I think he's angry about that.
Do you think
Probably.
that's the straw that broke the camel's back for him?
I think so. I mean, he's probably been watching it for a while because, like you said earlier, Turbo, the social media has not been fair to both sides. Where Neil's going to disagree with us. I can see.
Well,
him
okay,
right now. He's
no,
gonna 100%
okay.
disagree.
So no, I'm going to agree with Neil on one point.
That's
They
correct,
do
Nasty.
apply it. They do apply it evenly and fairly. It just determines who the person who's working that day wants to apply it to.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see
And I
it.
would, the lawyer that day, because
Yes.
it's ultimately their lawyers. They're going to be doing it.
Yeah. Exactly. So at the end of the day, while I on the surface, I agree exactly what Neil said.
Mhm.
On the back end semantics, who is applying that to a specific group is where I feel that the slant is being turned.
Yeah. But so ever since Elon bought up the 9%, everybody's been assuming that he was going to buy all of Twitter. He wants to do something with it. Have you seen any of the liberal response videos? They're going freaking nuts.
I haven't. I will be honest. I haven't seen.
You need to look it up. Even, I mean, I know you lean more towards the liberal side, Neil.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
But these are the freaking far left nut jobs.
These are the ones that make you look bad.
Yeah.
There's extremists on both sides. I think we
Oh, I know.
agree to that.
Yeah.
I know.
Yep.
But
And I'm sure
these are
that-
the ones that are way over there, and they're
But
going.
those are the ones that are getting
crazy.
amplified. And
Yeah.
those are the ones that are getting amplified.
It's freaking
Right.
hilarious. Their responses. You got to have to look it up after the show.
All right.
It's worth watching. I think Michael Knowles on YouTube. I was watching his show yesterday, and he did a short clip of it. And yeah, it's definitely worth looking into.
I'll have to take a look at it. I do find that stuff interesting. I'm still against Elon Musk buying it. I am 100% against Elon Musk buying
Why?
it. That's just, I don't. And again,
It's private company. It's private company, Neil.
No, it's not a private company. That's the problem. It's publicly traded because I own stock in it. And I will admit, I own stock in Twitter, so I have some skin in this game, right? If he takes it private, I get bought out, and now I don't have a part of a company.
Mm-hmm.
When companies are publicly traded, they do have more accountability because their board meetings are public. You can sit in on them if you are a shareholder.
I sat in on GameStop's the past couple times they've had them.
Exactly. If GameStop was private, you would not be. Whenever you're going to take a company private, there are good and bad things happen. I don't really care about Twitter. I'll be completely honest. I care about the fact that I have money invested in it, and I don't want to. And I do believe, I said this before, I believe any publicity is good publicity. Good or bad publicity, it's all good because it gets your name out of there, out in people's mouths, gets people talking about you, and Twitter is constantly being talked about. I believe Twitter stock will go up next year. I truly believe it'll be.
I think it's going to go up here over the next couple weeks.
Right now, given the current economy with inflation and how tech companies are lagging and dropping, I don't see it doing well soon. Well, again, if my conspiracy theory is correct, right, next year we're going to see a bump in this. And when companies hit back up, I believe Twitter will easily break $80 a share.
That's where they were last year.
Exactly.
And that was one of the main arguments why I think the board's didn't want to take.
We are at a downtime. I bought Twitter at $52 a share. So if Elon were to buy it out at 54, I would barely break even.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, with all the fees and everything.
I understand
out.
Right now I am at a loss, but I really believe they'll be back up making me profitable and then some next year. That all goes away if he buys it. So for me, it's more personal, right?
Yeah.
Sure. It's really not based off of who he is or what he wants to do. For me, it's the fact that I invested X amount of dollars. I'd rather not say how much, but I invested X amount of dollars. I understand that I'm at a loss currently, but I really believe I'm going to recoup it and make money more next year. And I don't want that chance to go away because he has his panties in a bunch. And to me, that's what it boils down to, right? He's pissed off at something. Fuck knows what it is because he's high all the time. Nothing is that. I
was going to say,
great.
I'm like, hold on.
Nothing against being high.
I agree with you, Nasty. Natty says that our social media should be treated as a public utility.
Okay.
I kind of agree because
that's interesting perspective.
Well, what's that?
Go finish. That's an interesting perspective. I want to piggyback on that, but finish your point first.
So the way we used to, our politicians used to get their word out was the public square. We no longer really have a public square, and a lot of conservatives that I've talked to and seen, read articles about, they see social media as the new public square because that's where everybody is, and that's why I think it should be treated as not fully. It still should be a private company or a publicly traded company, but it should have the certain laws put in place to protect the users from being censored and only having one side of the story put out.
So the reason I think it's an interesting perspective is because companies like Bell or PG&E, those are public utilities, right? They're utility companies, but they're publicly traded on the stock market. You can own stock in them, but they are public utilities, so they have certain laws that govern them. I would be interested to see where social media would fall in this. And the reason why is because certain public utilities, like in California, we have PG&E for our
utilities and electricity.
Right?
Your electricity.
Pacific Gas and Electricity, I should just say what the acronym is, right? Their company caused the 2020 fires in California, right?
Yep.
Through investigations, it was found their company caused those fires, right? Cost the company something like $1 billion or a couple of $100 million, right? Where did that cost go? To me, right? I live in California. Everyone's rates went up.
Mhm.
Perfectly legal, kind of a fucked up thing to do, right? But are they going? So I guess getting back to the public utility thing, are they going to be treated like that, where they can still do whatever the fuck they want, but they can't have a monopoly? Or are they going to be treated more like a public utility under the FCC, which would be, in my opinion, a lot more unique? Because I think that would bring up, as we talked about in the prior podcast, check it out. We talked about free speech on social media, right? And that
We'll
goes
get the
also
links
back to
to where
terms
you
of
can
service.
view it at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes back to our prior comments about terms of service agreements, and freedom of speech thing would be a lot.
Oh, Neil, you're cutting out again.
Nope.
Oh no.
We're losing Neil again.
I think you're good now. It's
Okay.
smoothed out.
Yeah, it's smoothed out.
Wait, so the
You're
freedom
correct,
of
Nasty.
speech
Twitter
thing,
doesn't owe us anything for the First
Right.
Amendment protections.
well, Twitter, you're using their platform, right? So for Twitter, you're using their platform, so they can not let you do it because it's theirs. You are just a user of their platform.
Okay.
If they become if they become a public utility under like the FCC, that may or may not change depending on how the law is written, right? Which I think would be a different perspective on it, and that's why I think it'd be more interesting if they go as a public utility under FCC. I'm not necessarily against it. I'm actually all for it, but mainly because the First Amendment thing. A lot of people like to say, "Oh, the First Amendment is violated when you remove someone from a platform." No, no, no. When you remove someone from a platform, you're removing them from a business, and a business has the right to remove whoever the fuck they want under their terms of agreement. And again, back to my prior point, terms of agreement are written completely vaguely for a reason. They can apply them however the fuck they want. So it is completely okay for a company to tell you you cannot use my software anymore, right? You didn't technically buy Facebook, right? You
Nope.
didn't buy it. So that application is fine.
Yeah. So I think the biggest issue is where do it, and I guess the biggest issue is that these private companies, and I'm going to use them in the term of companies that are in the business to make money. Okay. And all of those are. So when you start looking at that and you say, okay, well, now what I have is I now have an organization that now is where the majority of legacy media, politicians, and other people of importance, and I use that term very loosely and in quotation marks because I don't think that a lot of these people are as important as they think they are, have a voice and they can amplify their message. An individual that wants to, who is in that person of importance, amplifies a message and they are removed because they violated terms of service. So the thing is that now what you're getting into is the reason why a lot of the reason why they've been able to do that is because they are not listed as a publication or a news outlet. Thus, they cannot, and this is the crux and the gray area that we do not have an answer for, is the New York Times just can't write Sean's a piece of shit on their headlines because that's libel.
Right. They can.
Well, okay. Actually, they said Sean's a murderous piece of shit. Now it's libel because I have not committed murder.
But it's not liable for the paper if they say it as an editorial.
Editorial, exactly. And see, but see, now you hit the exact thing. That's an editorial remark of which they are the person who wrote is liable from that.
The person who wrote is liable.
But you're right. But now, if I'm saying because that editor says, well, I'm not going to allow you to write that article at that person because they have that ability to amplify the stories that they agree with. If social media companies, I'm not going to say specifically who because it applies to all of them, now goes in and says, I'm not going to allow you to state your message because I don't want it on my platform, I am now no longer a free speech. Thus, I am not, there's a whole liability thing that they are not a newspaper. Okay. They have moved it. And that's where I think that the issue becomes is they're playing in a gray area that we don't have regulations for, and I am not one for more regulations. I'm just saying that right
goes
now.
Down the road of the Section 230.
I was trying not to say that because that's been beat to the ground so much, and people hear it and just go, well, Section 230, you're a lunatic. I don't want to listen to you anymore. And I'm trying not to say those because they got beat into the ground, so that we can actually have a conversation where people just don't stop engaging.
I think we talked about that for quite a while when we were doing this on the Discord, through the podcast. That was one of the big things that we talked about.
Yeah. Again, because they are a publicly traded private company. Because they can determine and dictate who uses their service, because again, you don't buy it, you don't have to pay to own. It's not like a game you have to buy, right? They can stop you from playing whenever or posting whenever they want. I equate it to like free to play games, right? So if you're playing like PUBG and PUBG bans you, and their terms of service are just as anonymous and shady as
it's across
Facebook's,
across the software. EULAs are
but again,
vague as hell.
Buy the game, right?
Yeah,
it's their game. It's a free to play game. It's their game. They're letting you play it. They determine they don't want you playing it. They're banning you. That's fine. That is their right. Same thing applies to Twitter and Facebook. It's just political now because they, for whatever reason, and I can say typically it boils down to boycotts. So do you believe boycotts are part of the First Amendment? You okay with boycotts?
I don't.
Not that you agree with them, but the premise of a boycott. Are you okay with the idea of people boycotting? Do you believe people have the right to boycott?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. I'm glad we all agree. Everyone has the right to boycott. If people say we're going to boycott Twitter unless you get rid of person A, Twitter has the option as a company to acquiesce to the boycott's demands or say fuck it and not. That is their position as a company. If they choose to kick that person off, because again, terms of service are shady for a reason, and acquiesce to the boycott, doesn't mean you necessarily agreed with the boycott, but it worked.
Yeah.
So our First Amendment worked in that sense. Because boycotting is protected under the First Amendment. It's a freedom of speech. I have the right. You can call it cancel culture, but ultimately it's just people boycotting something. The company doesn't have to acquiesce to the demands of the people boycotting.
Right, Davar.
They choose to.
Davros? He's saying boycotting is just a free market choice.
Exactly. 100%. And it's now become called cancel culture. But cancel culture is ultimately boycotting. We're not going to, we're going to cancel this comedian because we're going to not go to his shows and tell people they're horrible for going to his shows. That's fine. That is a boycott. You are more than welcome to boycott people. I don't have to agree with your boycott, and I'm not going to acquiesce to your boycott. I'm still going to go to the shows, right?
Yeah.
That's what boycotting is. You could argue that you don't agree with the fact that social media companies more often than not will acquiesce to the people that are loud because they're a very small minority of people that are just a very vocal.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Neil, because
you're
brought
right.
Something up.
People do give Facebook and Twitter too much power.
Yeah, they do, because it's perceived legitimacy. But I want to go back to something Neil said that I thought was really interesting, and I kind of want to touch on this. Oops.
Hang on. Hold on. Hug the nog. The reality is the Constitution must be dissolved. It is the driver of government expansion. Let's talk about that. That's interesting.
Well, there was actually. Okay, so hopefully he can tell me that one of the people that was on the. Oh God, I'm gonna look like a fucking idiot right now. Who was on Mount Rushmore?
What?
Washington,
Washington and Lincoln. We know that.
Lincoln.
Who else?
Teddy Roosevelt.
And
Um,
he's the one I can't remember.
What's that?
People on the on Mount Rushmore was Lincoln, Washington, Roosevelt, and the fourth one. The fourth one was one of the founding fathers as well. And I can't
Jefferson.
Yeah.
I believe he was the one that actually agreed with this dissolution of the Constitution every like 20 or 30 years to allow it to be rebuilt from the ground up to more accurately represent the population at the time. So that's actually not a new idea. It's been around since the inception of the Constitution.
I've been hearing it a lot here recently.
And again, the Constitution was built and designed to be changed.
Mhm.
It's not supposed to be static. So that idea is pretty interesting. It
Yeah,
does
but to make
take
major changes. You have to have a convention of states, though.
yes, you do.
Yeah.
And you do have it takes a fuck.
It's very hard to do it.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
very difficult. But yeah.
But it has been done multiple times.
Sometimes, yeah.
I think it. What are we at? I think 16 times.
Something like that. 16 or 18, somewhere in there. Just under 20.
So it's been done, and one was done to repeal one that was created.
Correct. Because who wanted to take away alcohol? I mean, that was just
Anyway, so one of the things that Neil said is I'm going to boycott this comedian because he's horrible, and those that go to him are as well. This is the problem that I have, is this transitive disgust or hate for someone who just likes something, right? And I think that's a bigger issue with the boycott, because this now divide, and the media does nothing but divide anyway, but I think this is the biggest problem. Yes, I voted for Trump in both elections. So because people hate Trump and think he's a racist, misogynist, I'm now racist and misogynist because I voted for him, right?
Yeah.
Which is a very myopic, narrow, and honestly toddler mentality. So
can you at least
now,
understand where it comes from, though?
No, I can't, because when you're giving me two options, I am trying to figure out the lesser of two pieces of trash.
Okay.
So do I want the dog poop or do I want the cat poop?
I don't want either of them.
Thank you.
So okay. And again, going back, I do like the fact that we can have civil conversations, and I agree with you. But I do think it's important to at least understand where the people that rope everyone into come from. And I'm not speaking for all of them because I truly don't know. What I think of why they do this boils down to the level of how bad something is. So follow me on this. We all know that when you get arrested for doing a crime, there's a level, right? Crime A has different tiers, right?
Yeah.
Drunk driving isn't necessarily as bad as drunk driving and hitting a parked car, right?
Yes.
It might give you wet and reckless or something, right? There's
Hold
different
on a
levels.
minute, nasty there. You've got two conservatives on this video right now, and we've been having a very, very rational conversation.
Civil and rational conversation.
Right. And I am obviously the lone Democrat here, and that's fine. So if there's levels of indecency, for lack of a better term, I wish I could think of something better right now.
Mhm.
What is worse when you have two clients? If you believe Trump is a racist, given his track record, his historical track record showing how his companies have been racist, he's said making racist remarks, all of that. So you believe Trump is racist. You believe Trump is misogynist by watch a fucking video, right? You believe Trump is xenophobic by listening to him talk about how horrible any country that isn't Christian is. So you have a xenophobe, a misogynist, and a racist. Someone who is a xenophobe, a misogynist, and a racist, all wrapped into one person. And the other person, let's just acquiesce and say they're a liar, a cheater, and a frauder, right? They lie all the time. They steal from everybody, and they fraud the government out of taxes. Would you still say they're equitable? Are they equal in their horribleness? Or is one still not as bad? And the people that mop everyone together saying, how can you
Oh man,
say that they're
cut
both
out.
piles of shit when one is so drastically different in what they did? That is what they're saying. Again, I'm not saying I agree with them, but I can at least understand that, because if that is your conviction, that is your standpoint, I get it. I'm not saying I agree with you, but I at least understand where you're coming from.
And I think that that's because the media seeks to divide us the way it does. Is, would you say that I am, and Neil, and be honest, do you believe that I am any of those three things in the conversation? And and there's a reason I'm asking this question, right? So just that. Do you believe I'm any of those things?
From what interactions I've had with you, no. But
Okay.
here's the thing. I already said I don't agree with those people, but I can at least understand where they come from. I'm not saying you have to agree with them.
Sure.
But you should at least understand where they come from.
And I think that the problem is that people like Cryo, myself, and you need to be out there talking like this, so people realize that we're people and not just this maskless, faceless mob.
Right. Now, I will be honest. I will be honest. Before one of the main, again, I've said the reason I joined the Discord political channel was because I was curious, right? I was like, and this is a whole different podcast, I understand, but I just want to put out, I was like, how the fuck can anyone logically vote for Trump knowing how shitty of a person he is? But I put that aside. And the reason I put that aside is because, again, I don't believe that everyone who voted for him is a fucking horrible person. Everyone had their own reasoning, and not only that, but has their own viewpoint, right? Our viewpoints are based off of how we grew up and the interactions we've had that led us to that point. Mm-hmm. Everyone's is dramatically different. So I really wanted to get to know the other side from what drove you to that perspective. And that's why I really like that, the journey. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not saying they're right. I can at least understand where they're coming from. And I think the reason it's important to understand where they're coming from is you can't begin to talk to someone like this if you don't understand where they're coming from. So to just, and I'm not bashing you, but to just say it's myopic and toddler thinking is, again, dismissing everything they're saying. And again, I'm not saying what they're saying towards you is right, but you can't start to engage those people until you understand where they're coming from and put their insults aside and have an interaction with them.
And this becomes the other thing is, yes, but that is not 100% incumbent upon me to understand them. Just like you've done, they have to be willing to understand the other side. And this is where the breakdown becomes. You, for your side of the political aisle, whatever you want to call it, you're Neil to me, and that's all it's ever going to be, right? To sit there and to say, okay, well, yes, I have to understand where they're coming from, but that sword cuts both ways. They have to be willing to understand where I'm coming from as well, and can't just immediately say, oh, well, because of this, I am only ever going to see you as X, and I'm not even going to be interested in hearing what you have to say, right? So I see where you're coming from, but that has to work.
Have you ever heard the adage, violence only begets violence?
Yes.
You know what it means?
What's that?
Yes, it's like
violence only begets violence.
I've heard that.
Got that, Cryo?
Yeah, I've heard that before. Sorry, the stream's acting up. I'm trying to mess with settings while you guys are talking.
Okay.
So you know what it means, right?
Yes.
Turbo?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Just because violence was done on you doesn't mean you do violence towards someone else.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I'm not saying it doesn't go both ways, but one side has to at least try.
Yes.
If your mentality is they have to learn, no, go into it the way I went into it. I don't expect to change anyone's mind. Insults thrown at me are fine. I don't care. I'm still trying to learn and understand and get my point across. Eventually, over time, it is not quick, it is not fast. Their perspective will hopefully start to soften, not change, just soften. That's all that's going to happen, and I'll become more accepted. It is a long haul game. It's like playing chess. You're not going to win immediately unless you're a chess master, right? And I certainly am not. So the idea is that it goes both ways. I'm not disagreeing with, but you have to at least start somewhere. And starting off defensive, as you have to understand where I'm coming from too, isn't always going to work. You need to at least start somewhere by saying, I understand where you come from. You don't have to understand where I'm coming from, but I can at least understand where you're coming from. Now let me at least politely state my reasons, right? It's hard to argue with someone who understands where you're coming from. I shouldn't say argue. It's hard to be mad and continually berate someone who's being kind to you and understands where you're coming from. So yeah, they should definitely try to get to know everyone. Will that happen? Probably not. But the best way to start is to at least try.
Yeah. And obviously, that's one of the things, how we met Neil. I mean, let's be honest, the majority of the people that were in the group we were in, I would say was more on your political leanings. Would you agree with that?
Yes and no. I'm still on the fence with the dude from Florida, only because he was from Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You never know.
Sure.
So,
sure. But so that was my point. So I've always, and again, this is me personally, and I can only ever speak from my personal experiences. Is I don't ever want to be confrontational to everyone, but I can tell you that when someone comes and starts yelling at my face, my immediate response is not to yell back at them. It's to disengage from the conversation. Because like you said, violence begets violence. I'm not going to start, getting in someone's face because they got in my face, because that's, like you said, violence begets violence.
Right.
And so if all I'm doing is saying, that's fine. You can disagree with me, but you need to step back, right? Yeah. So there has to be, and I'm already a helicopter person rule anyway, even with my son. Like he was when he was really young, he'd be like right up against me. I'm like, dude, helicopter rule, So, those are the types of things. And it's one of the reasons why, Neil, I think we've gotten along so well, is that we're both willing to take that and to understand where someone else is coming from. And I'm not here to try and change your opinion, because that's not my job. I can't do it. I don't want to do it.
And I don't want anyone, I shouldn't say I don't want. I enjoy learning new things, and learning new things tends to change my perspective. But that wasn't ultimately my goal of this. My goal of this was to just learn and engage with people from different perspectives. And I truly enjoy that. And I don't think we're all here to change each other's minds, but I think it helps us gain a better understanding from where the other side comes from. And I say the other side because I don't believe most Republicans are the tiki torch chanting assholes, right? I think most Republicans are just regular people like you and Cryo.
Yes,
I wouldn't consider myself a Republican, though.
Yeah, okay. And I'm getting away from that as well.
That might be a whole nother podcast, but real quick, is that because of the is that a recent shift, or is that a always been shift, Cryo?
It's always been like that. I'm very conservative, but I wouldn't consider myself Republican. A lot of my views do align with the Republican politicians that are in power now, but I really don't care for any of them.
And, Turbo, was that same for you? Was that a recent development, or has that always been you don't consider yourself a Republican? Conservative.
I always considered myself, I would say myself was a Republican, but I was never staunch, like, I'm out in the fields, chanting I'm a Republican. It's just more of something I always kept to myself. I think it was
didn't have
probably about, probably mid 2000 like 2004, 2005 was when I started paying attention because my son was born. And I'm like, okay, I probably need to start understanding what world's going to be left to him. So I started to become more and more, and, you know, because, you know, Republican, I'm like, okay, so, and I started looking into it, and, you know, I'm seeing things from both sides that I don't like or agree with. You know, I'm probably more like Cryo now, but I would have to say that's probably something over the past, you know, if I'm honest, 12, 15 years. So it's not something that I've always been, but I was never really into understanding what was happening at the political level. I just, and still to a point, I'm just like, you know what? I just want to be left alone to be able to live my life.
Yeah. I
You
did
know, and a
politics
lot
about a
of,
year and a half ago. So
and so a lot of it is, and so Crow, I turned 51. So you're ahead of me when it comes to that anyway, when it comes into politics, because I didn't start getting into that until I was in my late 30s.
well,
Right.
I didn't really have a choice though with how politicized everything's become over
Yeah.
the past 2 years. I didn't really have a choice to other than to start following it.
So, and, you know, and that's, again, I really wish we could just be left alone, which is why I don't do Twitter. I don't do Facebook. The only social media that you can even find anything about me is on LinkedIn. Why is that? Because that's pretty much the only place when I want to find a job, that's the only place I'm going to be able to do it. So, you know, and I enjoyed LinkedIn before it became all about the running commentary and it became the business person's Twitter. I much prefer early LinkedIn to what it's morphed into now, because it's like, I don't, you know, hey, you got a promotion. Good on you. I think that's awesome, right? You want to, you know, your company is releasing this product. I think that's a great use of LinkedIn. It's the personal stuff that people start throwing out there that I start having the kind of the, I'm not interested anymore.
I don't have a LinkedIn, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got one.
So,
I had to start it a while back.
so in tech, because I do work in the tech industry and the IT industry, that's pretty much where you go.
Yeah.
There's no, that is where all of the IT and technology companies go. If you want to look and see what's going on with Microsoft or Oracle, yeah, you can go to Twitter. They put it there, but there's so much more information on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's how my previous job found me.
So
through LinkedIn.
Anyway, I digress. But anyway, so, you know, my goal now is to be off of social media as much. I'm trying not to be as, because at the end of the day, what I think is more important than anything else is the relationships that I've built with other people. And what have I done? You know, when at the end of the day, it's like I said at the beginning of this podcast, Neil, I'm going to California, want to hook up, you want to get together? That sounds awesome. That's what I live for.
That would
That's
be
what I
something
care
that
most about.
We need to plan down the road is for everybody. We already did plan it one time for everybody to go to Guardian Con 2 years ago, but you know, COVID happened and that got canceled.
Right.
But I don't even think you were part of the Discord at the time, Neil.
No, that was before me.
I know Turbo wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah, no, we should get together and go to a barbecue joint. That sounds hella good.
Mm-hmm.
I got plenty of them. I got plenty of them where I'm at. I'm in barbecue heaven, baby.
I know, and that actually brings me to my next point. I know we got a couple minutes left. I wanted to close out with this because you know Turbo's here, so I gotta bust his chops.
Well, here we go. Oh boy, here we go.
I want you to explain to me in layman's terms this phrase because I don't understand it.
Okay.
Don't California my Texas. Being the California boy, you're the Texas boy, right? I want to understand this phrase.
I understand because I'm on that conservative side.
So
I want to see his explanation.
So the biggest thing is a lot of Californians have moved to Texas because of the lower taxes, the property values are, they're not as high. So again, what you're selling your 950 square foot condo for, you can buy a 4,500 square foot house and still have a lot left over. Like that's about half. The reason why we say that is if you come to Texas, we welcome you with open arms, but don't vote for the policies and the things that created the situation in California with the high taxes and the things that we perceive is how California got to be so bloody expensive to live in.
Okay. So I still don't understand. And here's the reason why I don't understand.
So
let me tell you why I don't understand.
We're back, Nasty.
You don't want Californians. So you say you welcome Californians with open arms, but only if they vote the way you want them to vote. That's not really opening you with open arms, right? It's not welcoming with open arms.
You're right.
And shouldn't you make your policy ideas more what's the word I'm looking for? Palatable? Shouldn't you try and make them more enticing to someone who comes there to vote for them? Because here's the reason why I'm saying that. You're saying you don't want Californians to vote and increase the property value of the homes in Texas because that'll happen with what happened in California, right? But from a business perspective, and when you own homes, that is your equity, that is your livelihood, right? If I have a home in California, right now, the median, let's say a 2,500 square foot home in California, will go in like Silicon Valley will go for around $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sell that for $1 million in California. I'm going to move to Texas. I'm going to buy that same home for how much does a 2,500 square foot home go for in your area? Do you know?
Yeah, in my particular area,
About $1 million.
about 450.
Let's round it up to $500,000. Let's round it up to $500,000, right?
Yeah.
$500,000. I have $500,000 left up. That is a hell of an investment because I most likely bought that house in 2008, 2009 when the market crashed. So I probably got it for $250,000. I made $750,000 off of it, sold it, still have $500,000 profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now if I can change policies to increase the value of my $500,000 home to $1 million,
mm-hmm.
I've now made $1 million profit, right? Because I really had $250,000. If I bought for $250,000, sold for $1 million, $750,000 profit. Bought for $500,000 on my profit. I'm still up $250,000 from my initial investment of $250,000. I'm still $250,000, $250,000 profit. I am now making $1 million on this home that I bought with pure profit. I'm now $1.25 million in the green. Like, what's the problem? Why should I not want to keep making money? We're a capitalistic society. Isn't that our goal, is to continuously make money? So you're preventing me from doing what our society naturally wants to do, make money. That seems counterintuitive from a California perspective.
Okay, yeah, from a California's perspective. From a Texas perspective, basically what you've done is what has happened and I'm like, okay, so you got me kind of fired up here because this is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and I'm not saying you,
which is why I brought it up.
Saying,
I know you're not saying me.
Yeah, I'm not saying you. So I want to be very crystal clear to the people watching this. I am not attacking Neil. Okay.
Yes, he is. Yes,
no, I'm not. No, I'm not. So the biggest thing is while yes, you as an individual do that, the problem is that you have now increased the cost of living to the people that are already there because our salaries don't match what's in California.
No.
Okay. So now what you've done, no, it doesn't. But see, that's not economics. No, it doesn't.
It does work that way. California voted to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. You could vote to do the same thing.
And I don't want to because I don't want my Big Macs being $10.
Well, our Big Macs aren't $10. Where do you go to get a Big Mac for $10?
How much are your Big Macs?
What was that?
How much are your Big Macs?
A Big Mac meal or the Big Mac itself?
Either one.
Okay, so a Big Mac meal is like $9, $8.50, $9. Number one.
Yep. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's fine.
But the thing is that no, you're driving up. You're right. They will do that. but in 10 years. Okay. So basically it lowers the standard of living of the people that are
Got 'em
here.
right,
And I'm
Matthew.
getting
Got it.
outside. If those are the policies that you want, why are you coming here?
Because we can.
Why?
country, you
No,
It's America,
No,
right? Like in
no.
America,
Sure.
we have the right to move
Yeah,
freely
you
throughout
do.
our state, right? And so we have the right to live wherever we want in any state, correct?
Yeah.
Then
And
why
so
are
we
you?
have the
Why
right.
are you
We
leaving?
have the right to put forward whatever policy in whatever state we live in, wherever we want. It's not doesn't mean it's going to get voted on, but the reason it's getting voted on is because some people seem to like it.
When they're all moving in and transplants.
Mhm.
So effectively what's happening is you're changing the political structure and so basically you're taking it as an invading army.
So do you think
So
migration is bad? I mean,
if it
immigration
changes,
is bad.
so
Immigration
the
is bad. That's you're saying that immigration is bad then because it's changing your status quo. Status quo doesn't mean good. Status quo just means there's no change.
Hey, Turbo,
yeah,
we got a
and I don't
question
like
for
that.
you from the
Yeah.
viewers. Nasty Natty. He said, your take is my salary doesn't match. So the problem is the Californians and not the company is what you work or every company around that you could feasibly switch to. He wanted me to ask you, why are you blaming Californians when there is a bigger issue that I'm saying?
Okay, so I
actually
work
do.
for a California. So here you go. I work for a Californian company. I don't get paid by that company because I get paid based on the region that I live in, not based on the job that I do for the company.
Yeah, but
That
that's
is why.
also a company issue, because not every company does that.
Okay.
Especially during COVID, when people started working from home and telecommuting permanently, they started moving out of Silicon Valley, right? Granted, the homes are still insane and you can't find a home, but some did start trickling out and moving to other
And
states.
our company
some companies
cut their salary.
Some companies did not. And the companies that did not see an exodus of people. The companies that did start seeing people leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the people that the salaries cut left from California selling their home and didn't really care because they were already in the black.
That is one thing that I did like about this whole shutdown from COVID. A lot of people realized that they didn't have to be on site.
Yeah.
Working at home is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I
But
wish more
privilege.
companies, it should be the norm.
A lot of industries can work from home, and it would save the company money, which they could put that extra money that they've saved back into the employee, which I'm 100%.
Which
they're probably not going to.
They won't. But here's also the thing, and I think that's what and the thing is we have to understand that how we look at being inside and how we do our job is because we know that our company pays us for a reason, not just because we exist in this role, and we still have work that needs to be done, right? So there are certain people that can't do it due to the fact there's too many distractions. You know, one of the biggest issues that I work in tech sales. My son was at home from school. It was very difficult for me to do my job because he's trying to do his schoolwork on a computer. And so he's constantly, instead of paying attention to his schoolwork, he's doing YouTube instead, you know, and now because I'm sitting next to him, I'm now having to redirect him all the time. So it was a challenge, right? That was one of the biggest issues that I had for that. Now, yes, but I'm a field resource anyway. I moved from an inside position to a field position, you know, February of 2020. So perfect timing.
And I'm not saying that every job can be done in the home, right?
But not every person can do that either.
But those that can should. We can agree on that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so yeah.
And there's technologies. There are vast technologies that allow people to do it. So, and that was one of the things, like, we didn't really see a dip because we do technologies that allow people to access corporate resources securely from their homes.
But back to the Texas thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still,
if you like the policies of California, why are you trying to implement them here? Because see, the problem is, I think, Neil, is you were very focused on the economic only aspect of it, as opposed to what else is happening. I am with Cryo and Zach. Taxation's theft. I don't want my taxes being increased.
But here's the thing, though. Go ahead, Crow. I already know my point.
I somewhat agree with Zach on that. There needs to be some taxes. We do need to pay for certain things as a society. For example, our fire departments, our police departments, and all of our systems that are in place to help the needy, the ones that need the help. We still need the taxes for those.
So
I will go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Neil.
Well, keep your thoughts, respond to Crowd. My response to your initial statement, though, is because you went on the policies thing, right? If you like your policies, you should keep them there. But if your policies are so great, why don't you sell them better so that when we do move there, we vote your way?
Again,
because you can't.
But excuse me?
If you could make your policies better, or at least sell it better, you wouldn't have this fear that we're going to fundamentally change your policies, right? And I say we as Democrats because Democrats or democratic voting is what you're afraid of, although Texas does have a large Democrat population. And again, if you believe that your policies that are conservative Republican policies are so great, shouldn't you be selling them better? Because most people that vote go off of what's sold to them better. So if you had a better sales strategy, this wouldn't even be an issue. It'd be a moot point.
Well, the biggest issue is that what we're fighting is, and this is something that conservatives have done for far too long, is we have ignored the culture, and we have allowed the culture to turn into mostly progressive liberal in entertainment and music and the culture itself, because we thought that our ideas were strong enough to stand on their own, and we ignored the culture. The problem is politics is downstream of the culture. Mm-hmm. So what's happening is because the culture is telling a large group of people that they need to think a certain way, regardless of, because as we said, most people won't take the time and effort. We do have policies that for the most part people agree with when it comes to being able to keep most of your income. It's not going to superfluous, because in my personal opinion, government doesn't make things better. So when it comes to that, more government is not the answer. So
you think
when
private
you come
companies make things better?
What's that, Neil? I didn't hear that.
Do you think private companies make things better?
If you want to go on capitalism and you talk true capitalism and not crony capitalism, the answer is yes, because if a company is in there and builds a better product, they will have the market.
Okay.
The problem is, so again, you started down this road, and this is not so much for wrapping this up.
I know, we were supposed to be done an hour ago.
I know, but I just gotta say, okay, you know who started the internet, right?
The government, yes. DARPA. Mm-hmm.
You know where most of our technology comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
The government, right? Everything we do starts usually out of some type of weaponization, right? The government starts it, and then it's filtered off and taken, some would say, to better extent, not necessarily true. So the idea that a private company does things better than the government, when the government's usually the one starting it.
Neil, you've got a fan in Nasty Natty. He does not like you, Turbo.
That's fine. I sorry, Nasty. I'm just, it is, welcome to the chat, buddy.
It just, that alone kind of blows my mind.
Take part in our conversations offline.
I'm saying, The other thing too that just kind of bothers me too is when you get into true capitalism, though. That's also when you get to corporations owning towns where they rent you a
Mhm.
home and they rent you
You're
tools
correct,
to use to
Davros.
do a job, and they own you. Right? That is true
Yeah.
capitalism because a company's job is to solely make money and fuck off who works for them. Right? They
Mhm.
don't care about who works for them and how they get to the end game. That is true capitalism. So to think that's going to make a better product is wrong. It's going to make the most profitable product. The most profitable product is not always the best product. That's my
Yeah.
perspective.
I agree
Yeah,
with you.
I agree. Beta was far better than VHS.
But if the goal is a better product and we're going with a capitalistic perspective, then the government would default be the better option. If the only option is a capitalistic perspective where they're going to get the most profitable, not the
That's what
best,
he said. Nasty.
or a government perspective where they just want what's going to be better than other countries, which you could argue would then need to be the best to keep us ahead and on top of other countries.
Do you think that we've done that?
In what perspective? There's way too many arguments. For healthcare, certainly not. We are shit when it comes to
I'm
healthcare.
just
We have a
enjoying this
podcast on
chat
that.
going on right now.
I'm sure the chat's just, cool. I got my own hater group. I must be
Yes.
popular now. That's
We got
awesome. I got
4
my first
viewers, so-
got my first hater.
Nice.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, when
It-
it comes to the healthcare, no, we're horrible in healthcare, right? We're
That's
like
not my
38.
job, Nasty.
When it comes to things like military, most certainly we spend the most and we have the largest and I would argue the
Yeah.
best military. So it depends on what perspective you're saying. In what aspect are we better than other countries? When it comes to technology, I would argue no. I would say South Korea and Japan have a leg up on us when it comes to technology. And
I prefer the blue ones.
I'm talking more technology like home technology, computers, AI, things like that. Although AI, it looks like we're actually taking the lead on AI from the last article I read from MIT. So,
Okay.
yeah. And MIT,
Okay.
not a corporation, right? It's a school.
Yeah.
So,
Sure. And that's what they're focused on.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Hey, Nasty's got a question for you, Turbo.
Again. Okay.
Oh,
What
yeah.
is it, Nasty?
What is your opinion on the 5G cell towers?
I don't have an opinion on those. I really don't. And it's not something that I've looked into, and I honestly don't care.
Well, I think he was trying to see if you had a specific opinion because
because
I read
cancer.
a lot of
No,
the crazy conspiracies coming out
Yeah.
with 5G towers, and it's yeah.
No, Nasty. I'm not one of those, I'm not an Alex Jones. Okay.
I was going
So
to say
please
Lauren
don't,
Boebert, but
don't, again, stop it. The two of you, you two,
Oh.
Neil, you know me better than that.
No, yeah, I do know you, but I was to say Lauren Boebert,
Yeah.
that wasn't a shot. That was a legit fact. And
That's
Margaret Taylor Greene
crazy, Nasty.
thinking
People are
that
idiots
Jewish
when it
space
comes to that
leaders
stuff.
caused the fires.
These
are Congress people. Anyway.
Yeah, I look, I'm not even gonna, as far as I'm concerned, just burn it to the ground. I don't care at this point. My son was asking, hey, so if World War III happens, what bunker? And I'm like, son, I'm driving straight to the light. Just tell me where the rocket hits and I'll look and see if I can make it in time.
Oh no.
That'll make Nasty happy because that's one less me out of the world.
No. It's all fun.
Hey, Nasty, I'm going to get you a link to our Discord or at least a contact for us so you can send us a list of questions that you have for Turbo.
Great.
I'm
sure we can have a full episode of just that. And
great.
I'm happy to not be the lone Democrat. This is kind of nice.
Then we can't call you Geraldo or Juan anymore.
Has been very Democrat.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
But it is Twitch, and Twitch is meant for the younger, the majority of the younger.
Gen Z apparently tends to be more conservative or anti-government.
That is something that has surprised me here recently.
More anti-government. I'm not going to say they're conservative. I don't know.
Or independent.
No, they're more
anti-government.
They're also into they're into more of keeping their privacy. My son has no desire to be on any social media whatsoever. He's like, I don't want to have anything. No, I don't either.
Look,
So
this is a hell of a funny story.
Yeah.
My nieces and nephews, right? They're in their 20s and 30s now. But my wife's nieces and nephews, right? They're teenagers. They're growing up. They have social media, and everything they do, to some degree, is put out on social media, right? And I look at that, and I'm like, I start laughing. I'm like, I thank God that did not exist when I was younger. And they're like, why? And I said, of all the stupid shit I did
Yeah.
publicly, right? Like, do you guys remember the store Kmart? Did they have a Kmart in
Yes.
Texas?
Oh yeah,
They have a
we had
Kmart in
Kmart.
Ohio. Okay. So Kmart's gone under, right? They used to exist. My buddy and I had a thing. We would go to stores to intentionally get kicked out. I took a sleeping bag and wrapped it around my neck like a cape, rode a bicycle, and I put a hat on with a pinwheel in my hat, riding around the entire store, knocking shit over so I could get kicked out of Kmart. That came online now.
Oh,
I remember Walmart. Actually, I worked at a bar. We would get off about 3 o'clock after everything was cleaned up. We would go to Walmart, go to their gardening section, open up a thing of ice, dump it in their ice chests that were for display only, throw in a 6 or 12 pack of beer, sit in their lawn furniture, play music, and just drink in Walmart at like 3 o'clock in the morning. No,
Walmart
Yeah.
was the hangout place back when I was in school, and or not Walmart, sorry, Kmart, and then Walmart came into town, and everybody moved over there, and Kmart went out of business.
I remember the people that were cleaning up Walmart, because again, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. They'd walk by and be like, "What are you guys doing? Drinking? You want a drink? Here, we got plenty." And so we would like give them drinks. The manager would come over. "You can't be here. Fuck you. You make us leave." So then they call the cops, and we have to leave.
yeah.
I would have been all over World Star if I was back in the day. So I'm happy that shit. I can't imagine growing up now knowing that everything I do is at school
is recorded
online.
is recorded and kept. I mean, I saw a shirt that I thought I needed to get is like, I grew up in the 70s, which means everything I did has no record.
Right. Unless you were arrested,
And
which
true, you know, there was that. Fortunately, I did keep from getting arrested at that point. But you know, that is definitely, you know, an issue, you know, where we are living in effectively a virtual panopticon of where everything we do is watched and listened to.
and stored and sold.
Yeah. And sold. And
Did you
sold.
see
And
the
that's
John
the
Oliver?
biggest, that's the biggest issue is
Did you
sold.
see the John Oliver thing?
No,
Cryo, did you see
What?
what John Oliver did? Did you see what John Oliver did? Okay. So there's a show on HBO called Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. Highly recommend you check it out. I know he's left wing,
HBO, you said?
left leaning on HBO. I know he's left leaning, but really interesting. He tackled the idea of targeted advertisements and buying data, because everything you do is stored and sold. And
Yes.
so, and then from that, they take the data that they get and then they target their audience, right? And he agreed this is wrong. They shouldn't be able to do this because they can target with fairly accurately, because they can get down your VPN and everything else from where you're at. They know who you are and what you're buying and what you're looking at. You can buy this from companies that do this, like metadata, right?
Yeah.
So he did it. He bought data and then targeted ads to politicians, specifically 53 white males between the ages of 45 and 80 that were on Capitol Hill in a span of a week, that all clicked on some ads that were less than correct. Has all of their data, and then told them, look, I don't know what I'm going to do with this information, but if you don't want me to do anything with the information, you might want to make it illegal, right? And so I thought it was rather interesting and hilarious bit. You can actually get it on YouTube. It's a hilarious bit, but the fact of the matter is it's completely legal, and it's scary that all of that is legal.
Yes.
And then it came out that Google, when you go incognito on Google, they're still storing your data and selling it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They're just not keeping your history. I think that's fucking hilarious too. Yeah.
Well,
And that's the reason.
we're
Okay,
over,
anyway,
we're
I'm
over a
not saying
2 hour mark,
anything.
guys. So
Oh shit.
probably
All
cut
right.
this short or
All
cut
right.
it out now.
Cut it out.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Y'all are gonna kick me off because every time I come on, we go like over an hour.
Turbo, you need to come in because you weren't with us last week, and we only had the one viewer. Now this week we've been fluctuating between the 3, where Nasty's been with us for a while, the whole time, I think. And then we've been fluctuating between the 3 to 10 viewers the whole time.
Yeah.
So they're just hate watching. Awesome.
Dude.
Yeah.
Howard Stern. You know why Howard Stern was so popular?
Shock jock.
No, everyone hated him. The vast majority of his viewers were people that did not like him, reported him to the FCC. Swear to God, it was like 70% of people that listened to Howard Stern did not like him. I'm all for hate viewers. Hate me and watch me. Give me the money. I'm all for it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but they're not hating on you, Neil.
That's fine. I'll ride your. I'll ride
You'll
your
you'll ride that- you'll ride the
I'm sure
coattail.
we're going to get some people as we grow that's going to
Right.
hate on Neil. So, and I'm sure we'll
It's-
find some that hate on me, though I don't really talk much on here. But
You need
No,
to start. I
enjoy
thought you were
listening
going
to
to
you
talk
guys.
more. I thought you were going to talk more, mainly because I knew that Zach and I were the most polar opposite on this topic,
Mhm.
and you were more centrist, and you and Turbo kind of lined up, so it
Yeah.
kind of washed out. But I figured you'd be talking more on this one.
Well, I was going to until we changed subjects 500 times.
Sorry.
my bad.
I'm gonna take ownership of that one because I tend to go down rat hole.
That's how our
Rat hole's
shows
really
are
good.
typically going to go, though, because just of the way we are.
Yeah.
It was that way on our Discord chats too.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, let's
Right.
go close it out. Nasty.
All right.
We'll be back again next week. If you want to join us, we try to stream every Saturday, 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. Eastern time. What was it? 3 p.m.
Pacific. Yep.
Pacific.
Yeah, and 5 Central.
Yeah, because we got a couple people throughout our Discord that are across the country, some outside the U.S. as well. But myself and Neil are typically the ones that show up every week. We have another guy, Zach. We like Zach, but
Yes, Zach is
he's
awesome.
the most conservative.
He's a
of the group.
libertarian, I believe, right? Is that what it's
Yeah.
called? Libertarian?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But his rule is, if you're not here for the conversation, your viewpoint is wrong.
Yep.
His rule. He
Yeah. So
Neil for
he
it
wasn't
multiple
here, so
times.
he was wrong.
So fuck Zach for this week.
Awesome. And I'll post this up to YouTube
All right,
probably
Nasty.
Thursday.
Thanks for following. Davros, thanks for the follow. Hopefully we get a few more guys. Just let us know. Get the word out about us, and if you got some questions for us, especially the turbo haters,
Bring it. Bring it.
Yeah.
I'll put some links in the video over on Twitch, and we'll get Neil's links for his YouTube channel. That's where he posts the videos afterwards.
Yeah, I usually edit out and edit it down a little bit.
Yep.
And we'll close that out and put it on YouTube probably around Thursday.
Yep. So let's go with where everybody can speak to you. Neil, where can we reach you?
Hefeoso on YouTube. And I don't know my Twitter handle, so I can't say it.
I'll get those links in the chat if I can figure it out on Twitch.
right.
Turbo, what do you got? Nothing.
Nothing.
You're too scared of your
If you have a question for Turbo, you can go to the Hefeoso YouTube channel and put it there. I read all the comments.
Put it to Hefe. Hefe will get them to me.
And you can get me at Cryogenic Marine on Twitter. I don't use it that often. It was mainly for when I was doing prop making. But if we're going to start getting viewers, I might need to switch over to using that more often. And if you have questions for Turbo, put them on there as well.
Yeah, don't
Perfect.
make me do something.
You don't need to get it. You can go through us. You can go through
Okay.
us. It's okay. We
Please,
got you.
thank you. I would much
Cryo
rather. That's
and this guy.
just one less distraction.
Yeah.
Thanks
we
for
got
watching,
this.
guys. We'll catch you next
Have a
week.
good one.
All right. Bye, everyone.